Number 2.
I can't believe I invited.
11 o'clock.
I know. This one's going to be late. I thought you meant like number 2 podcast that you were on. I was surprised that you stuck around for 2.
Yeah, this is number 2.
Have you
Everybody's done 2. Olivia's done 2. Now this will be the second one I recorded. The second one Matthew's recorded. He just recorded 1. And then
Adam will have 2.
will be tomorrow. And then
Jake.
He's
doing his first.
I remember his last name because his last name's on his fantasy team.
Yeah. I didn't even notice that everybody has done 2.
Yeah.
It shows how many friends I have. So embarrassing. Like nobody. I do have a couple of people that I think are going to be on that should be pretty cool sometime soon. I've talked to a couple people who are like, oh, I really like that idea. I might come on.
Like who? I guess you can't name drop. Anybody I would know?
No.
Okay.
The only
are they people you know, or are they people?
Yeah, they're people that I know.
You should get Diver on here. It would be fun to like see like old. I want to watch episodes with people that I like. This would be like a great way for me to do a reunion with people without actually meeting them again.
Yeah, that would be. I get that. Yeah, I told him about it. He was like, dude, that's cool. I should come up. But I don't think there's any way. I'd have to do it. Like, he'd have to be on one.
He lives in Utah.
Yeah. And, I mean, he's as bad as I was before I started this. Like, I don't know that homeboy knows how to read.
Did he click record?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the light's reflecting really bad.
Yeah, it looks awful, Brandon.
Does it look awful?
Mid-show tech.
Right behind my head? Oh, boy.
Oh, it's this one?
Which one is it? Yeah, just move it. We're just going to do a little bit of
We don't have to.
rearranging.
No, you don't have to snip snap.
No, I'm not going to snip.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
But it is going to suck because that was the entire episode with Matthew then.
Yeah, well, screwed the pooch on that one. How are the cats doing? Did you check on the cats?
Oh, yeah, I totally forgot. Yeah, behind us right here in this window well, Josh has got some cats.
Yeah, this is my house. My abode.
Yeah, but tilt it towards Josh a little bit so that his face is lit up. Because now I just have 2 blinding me, and I really, really enjoy when Josh gets blinded because he complains the whole time.
I do. I bitch and moan.
No, you didn't ruin anything.
Are they sleeping?
Yeah, there are cats behind us.
You should just start over.
So,
No, we're not starting over.
nah, you don't need to clip anything. People listen for this. This is...
If anything, this is the only complaint that I get is that I ramble too much.
Yeah, it's that we're sitting... And this book was about this, and then this happened, and these characters, and then this, and then that.
Yeah, I still don't really know how to structure this podcast. I'm still just kind of learning.
I think honestly the only thing that people are going to care about is the storytelling. I don't think that they need to be shorter, and I do think that yes, because these early episodes have just friends and family, it's going to be a lot of like joking around and rambling. It's going to be a lot of like you're having a conversation with them on the couch. And for people who don't know us, that's pretty obviously unentertaining.
The other thing,
like they have more interest in the actual book that we've read, I think.
Yeah. The other thing, though, that I've kind of realized through doing this is that a lot of the podcasts that I listen to because I like the host or I like the guests.
Yeah,
I've heard them on
a lot
multiple
of it is the
podcasts.
personality. A lot of it is like...
It's not even so much the personality because some of the people that I like aren't the most personable. Like they're kind of personable. Like you like them and stuff like that. But you almost just like... I don't know, you almost feel like you're their friend. You know what I mean? Like you listen to them enough. Your friend is a little bit of the wrong way to put it. But you listen to them enough that like...
Well, no, but people fall prey to that.
Yeah,
and then YouTubers have to make like a whole video that's like, I'm not your friend, I'm a YouTuber. And they do. They make lots of videos. Like
I've never seen a video like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, loads of popular. Like for one example, Linus Tech Tips, big YouTube channel. They're like one of the bigger YouTube channels.
I think it rings familiar. I'm sure I've seen one, but
I think you need to be more of a degenerate and just watch way more YouTube.
I watch a lot of
But
YouTube.
that or like someone who's kind of entertaining to watch ramble is Ludwig. I don't really know. Have you seen him? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So sometimes he'll do like little news segments because he got like this journalism degree, and so he feels like he has to be like a little bit of a journalist. And so I'll kind of watch his Mogul Mail YouTube channel, and that is pretty entertaining. And he puts a bit of effort into that. And then the streaming channels are just kind of like him just sitting down and just doing stuff. I don't know, and being a streamer.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of that on the internet.
Oh, there's so much of that. I think it's amazing. Well, like between being a YouTuber, being like a Twitch streamer, and being like OnlyFans, I feel, or like that section, we'll call it that section. I feel like
Section X. Section XXX.
I feel like it is just insane how many people do that all of a sudden. I think a big thing that I thought about a lot while I was reading this book that we're going to talk about today was just how different people are. Like if 9/11 happened in 2021 versus 2001, how different would people react? Like, would it be a lot of the same, like where people talk about their day, they were going to work, and tragedy struck?
Yeah.
Or would it be
people? Have you seen the video?
I don't even know.
Have you seen that video that goes around with the chick who's like dancing in the hospital and her kid has RSV and it's like her talking about...
No, I have not seen that. That sounds
awful.
awful.
My gosh. It is so cringy. So it's like this video, it's this TikTok, and there's like this TikTok influencer that you can tell that she does like the TikTok dances.
Yeah.
And there's a song, and then she's in the hospital next to like a NICU bed. And she's like crying, literally doing the TikTok dance. Like, I can't do it. And then the words on the screen are like, went to the hospital last night because my baby was coughing. She has RSV. And we've been in the hospital for so long. She's still not responding. Like, it is literally like something tragic. And she's sitting there like doing her little TikTok dance while doing it. And I'm like, this is so sad that is the generation that like, that's how somebody's reacting to bad news, is doing a TikTok dance. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that is really weird.
I feel like
I can't even wrap my mind around that. That's so foreign to me.
I feel like that would be a lot of people, honestly, with like 9/11.
Well, okay. I do feel like, I think sometimes I get in that mindset where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, dude, everybody's like that now. And I think that's an overgeneralization big time. I think that the majority of people, like if tragedy struck in 2021 and that happened, like if 9/11 happened in 2021, people would, on a broad level, act pretty similarly, right? But then that population of kind of, I like don't know how to label that mentality. I don't want to call them dumb. I don't want to
Internet weirdos.
Yeah, internet weirdos.
Clout
Like the
chasers.
internet weirdos, that population has certainly grown, but the population of just normal, level-headed people, like-minded people, that population has not shrunk.
Yeah, maybe.
And I feel like people think that population has shrunk and then the internet weirdos has just grown. Internet weirdos has grown. Level-headed people are still the same. It's still the same number of people.
I don't know. I might differ with you on that one, but we'll dive into that a little bit more. But you mentioned that we're going to talk about this book. So the book that we read was Only Plane in the Sky, and it's a book about 9/11. I wanted to do a special episode for 9/11. I kind of want to try to do special episodes for special days. So whether that's a holiday, whether that's like a Memorial Day, it's not going to be every holiday and every Memorial Day or every.
Sure. Like we had Labor Day, but what would you read about Labor Day?
I don't know. Like maybe next year I could read, a book about something with labor. I don't know. But it's not going to be like every single one, Like we'll hit some of the bigger ones this year. we'll try to hit some major significant dates throughout history and read specific books on them. But it's just a way for me to get, more in tune with these days, learn more about these specific days and,
Right.
maybe read a book so that other people can understand it too. So this episode will actually come out on 9/11, which is Monday. And so that's why I wanted to read this book for this,
Yeah,
for this
good thing.
podcast.
Yeah, and full disclosure, full honesty moment here. Haven't finished it.
So what is the
I
actual,
am very close.
what is the actual timeline? Well, yeah, because you're listening to it on Audible. And for anybody who wants to read this book or, has any desire to read it, do it on, it's an Audible book. Like you don't read this book. It is so,
I do think that there are some circumstances where reading this book would be more important. Like a lot of what we talked about in the last episode that we did together had to do with like schooling and stuff like that because we have kids going into school and we're trying to make those decisions in life right now. I actually think like a high school level English class would have a blast reading this book.
like in like a,
Like where they're like, well, I don't know what it looks like on the page, but what I'm imagining is that there's loads of just paragraphs that are kind of in like a centered format because it's just quotes.
yeah.
And when quotes are in a book, they have larger separation between paragraphs and they're centered on the page.
But some of the
And I'm
recordings,
thinking it's just like,
some of the recordings that they keep in this book are, it's so powerful.
it was actually less than I thought.
It's not a lot. Like they don't have a lot of direct recordings. They have some.
I actually looked some up too.
They have some news statements, like
today.
news broadcasts, and then they have some recordings of phone calls.
Actual people, yeah.
But I would agree, for the majority of it, it's actually just actors reading direct quotes. So this book is about 9/11, and it is entirely from, the entirety of the story is told through quotes, like through direct quotes.
Yep.
From
the
either
point of view of just hundreds of people who are on the ground or on the plane or around the situation. Oops, I should probably put this on.
Whoa, so unprofessional.
Goodness.
Yeah, it's
my
like
house,
it's like we're doing this in a fake studio. Yeah, so the whole thing is told, and it's either real time. So there are some real time quotes, some real time excerpts, some real time recordings, or it's people looking back and telling their story. But it's all first person.
Yep.
All first person accounts. So people who were in the stairs, walking up or down the stairs on in the towers. It was people who were at the Pentagon, people who were involved in the FAA. I thought that part was fascinating.
That part was really interesting, especially like the military response and how there were two fighter pilots in particular who that I did not know existed. And I didn't know that their job was their job.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get through it. Like we'll get to that point.
A little bit chronologically.
Yeah, but I think we talk about it chronologically, and I think that'll help.
Yeah. So that's this book. Honestly, so did you figure out like how far you are into it? So
Yeah,
it's like 15 hours long or 14 hours long, something on Audible.
So I have 5 hours left of 15. So
You're 2/3 the way through.
I am a chunk of the way through. And of everything I've listened to, it's like the event is over and people are just realizing that it's over, right? Every plane is grounded. They're kind of just waiting for a presidential response at this point. They're kind of trying to decipher, like, is the government collapsing?
Yeah.
Like, how broad is the attack? Is it kind of just one thing, one tragic thing, or is the whole government collapsing? And so they're kind of waiting for that presidential. But I think that Secret Service just had the president on such a lockdown for so long that he couldn't even do anything if he tried, if he wanted to. I mean, it was the law that people protect him. So they weren't going to let him off his plane. Right now, they've just landed Air Force One after taking off the first time, and they're going to let people off, let non-essential people off is what the quote says, and then refuel and take off again and just be the only plane in the sky.
Yeah. Okay, so that's where you're at right now. Did they? So has the plane? All right, we'll go through it chronologically. But
Sure.
what's your overall perspective on the book so far? Like,
I mean, it's a really heavy book. It's a hard read.
yeah,
You hear like so often in the book, almost to the point where it makes it a norm, is you hear, that was the last time anybody ever saw that person. Like my account of that person was the last time I saw them or they were alive or I watched this person die. And that is like over and over and over and over and over again. Like it's so hard.
yeah,
It's so tough. And they talk about like who they are and they have interviews with their spouse and then they talk about the kids that they have. And I thought it was crazy how many people were so brave, right? Like the first plane hits and everybody thinks it's an accident. President thinks it's an accident. President is at an elementary school reading books for kids.
Okay, so wait, before we get into that, I do want to cut you off. And sorry for cutting you off.
No, you're good.
I'm trying not to do that
We'll
with
find-
podcasts, but
yeah.
I do have kind of like a little bit of an outline that I'd like to go with this episode just because of the magnitude of this episode and also the magnitude of like the book itself. Like for me personally, this was one of, if not...
Wait, you need to get the cat in the window.
Oh my goodness.
I wonder, and there she goes.
Is she allowed to leave?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Oh, I just didn't know that because you guys put like drywall above it.
Well, we put the drywall above the grate. So like the window well is covered with like a metal
Grate?
welded grate or
Yeah, like
whatever.
yeah,
so the
window
kids
well
don't
covered.
fall in. And but like rain can still fall in and like the sprinklers kind of hit it a little bit.
Oh,
So we had like that extra drywall from,
The garage or something. I don't know.
well, I guess it was from when they were finishing the basement. I don't know how it got left, but we had it. I broke it in half and just kind of put it on the top. So that rain
How
sprinklers.
So just so everybody's watching, there are kittens in this window well.
6 of them.
There's 6 kittens. How old are they?
I don't own a single cat, by the way.
The neighbor's cat had
Yeah, this is the neighbor's cat.
got down and dirty and then birthed kittens in your window well.
Well, this is also not the first time that this cat has had kittens that are like just invading the neighborhood. Like I have had kittens from this same mother in my house because like I would drive home, I'd open the garage door, I'd park the car, and kittens would come into the garage. Like I'd be like bringing things in the house. I'd see a kitten. I'm like, okay, I'll walk over to it and I pick it up and I'm like taking it somewhere outside so that it can, because they just wander. There's no like specific, like there's farms around me. So, and then I walk back inside and there's a kitten inside. And so I put everything down again and I pick up that kitten. And as I'm walking out, another one walks in. I'm like, so yeah, this
is kind of cool though that they're right in your window well. Your
It is kinda
girls
cool.
are loving that.
Yeah, my girls are loving it. I don't see a way out of this where we don't.
Get one of the kittens.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well,
We're gonna name them soon. Their eyes are just about opening, so we're gonna end up playing with them, and it's like,
my girl already said that she's bringing the white one home with us.
Oh,
So,
great.
In case you're wondering,
Good.
the white
One
one's
down.
coming with us. Apparently, she
One
told
down.
me. She walked up to me and was like, "I want the white one." I was like, "Well, it can't leave its mom." And she was like,
oh, I'm gonna tell her she can take it.
she literally looked at me and was like, and she's 3. She's like, "Okay, we'll take the mom too." And I was like, that was not the result that I was looking for. I was
No,
thinking like, oh,
actually-
we can't have either. Now we're just going to take both. We went from 0 cats to 2 cats because obviously that's the logical step
She's a problem solver, right there.
right there. That was an easy solution. Like, oh, you idiot, dad.
High IQ player right there. Oh, that's so funny.
But
We'll take them out.
oh my gosh. But all right, that was a little bit of a tangent. But in my opinion, this was one of the most important books I've ever read.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. How old were we during 9/11? I was 6, so
You were 6. I
I've been
was
like 8 or whatever.
8. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Did I just turn 9?
I had just turned 6. I was like 6.5, I guess.
2023, 7, 8.
Yeah, you were 8 and a little bit.
8 and a little bit. So 8 and a little bit. What grade are you in?
6 and a little bit. I don't know. So my recollection of the day, 9/11, because I do remember it. I remember because my parents had a TV in their bedroom, and it was one of those ones where it had like, it was a Toshiba, I think. And it was one of the ones where you click it on and you can hear it. You can hear that high pitched, and it's got that thick glass and that thick plastic border and a deep back. And
The deep back was my favorite because you pick it up and it just fell backwards because there was just so much crap in those things.
I have no idea what they were made of and like what. Like I honestly,
they just
I
had like a brick and
understand
wire or
electronics so much better today. I don't even know what that is. Like, and it's kind of sad. I feel like nobody knows the origins of like true electronics. Like nobody knows how we got to this point. Like we can't even replicate it anymore. It's lost to time.
It's like that joke from what's that name? Nate Bargatze. Have you ever heard his joke about that?
No.
Where he's like, I could never be a time traveler. He's like, 'cause if I went back in time, someone would be like, prove it. He'd be like, who was the next president? He's like, he's like, I don't know any presidents.
Yeah.
He's like, and then he's like, but in the future they make little phones that you can talk to people. How does that work?
How does that work?
I don't know. He's like, I'd go back in time and I'd do worse then than I do now. He's like, I don't know how things work.
How does that work?
He's like, he like tries to describe a satellite. He's like, I think it's like a satellite or something. And he's like, what's that? I think it's metal. I think it's metal that they put into space. That would be me.
Yeah, dude, me too. I have a computer science degree, software developer. Dude, I don't know how that works. Yeah. It's kind of nuts. There's like I actually saw an ad on Instagram. It's like, get your, what is it? Space engineering certificate from John Hopkins or whatever. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. That would be a cool, talk about a cool job. I'm a space engineer. It sounds like a video game.
It does.
What were we talking about?
Where were you in 9/11? Like, do you remember? So you were 6 years old.
So I'm in my parents' bedroom, the Toshiba TV. It's small, but I do remember my mom's reaction. My dad's sitting on the bed. He's like ready to go to work, or he's.
So I was just looking at what time it happened, and here in Utah, because you were living in Utah.
It was
at
a
the
Tuesday.
Time.
It was yeah. That's why my dad was at home. My dad used to start work late on Tuesdays and then work late, just to like have alternate hours in case people needed to come get their teeth cleaned at alternate
So the
hours.
first plane hit at 6:14 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Okay, so we would have been tuning in after the first plane hit. So this was it was like an hour later that the second plane hit, right? I will say that's what's tough about this book is it doesn't give you those like interesting facts that you want to know. Like one thing I wanted to know today while I was listening to it, what floors were hit by the plane on the tower? Because like when someone introduces themselves, right? Because every time there's a quote, they preface it with their name and usually where they were, unless they reoccur in the book a lot. And so when someone say they're on like the 72nd floor, is that above or below where the plane hit? I don't know how many total floors there were. There were over 100, I believe, 100 and...
So it was only 20 minutes later.
What?
That the second plane hit, and then it was only 30 minutes later
That the first tower collapsed.
No, that the Pentagon was hit.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then it was an hour after the first plane hit that the first tower collapsed.
Geez, an hour.
The whole thing only happened in 102 minutes and 102 minutes.
Wow, and everything was done.
Yeah, which is crazy. That's so fast. Like that's happening because
I can't like.
so it was still early, but my guess is that your parents woke up, didn't know what was going on, turned on the TV,
Yeah.
and that's all that was playing for the
and
whole day.
Back then, and they kind of still do now, but they watch the news less now. Back then, they watched the news all the time. They watched every channel all the time, and it was evenings and mornings, and yeah, they would wake up, turn on the television, and get ready while listening to the television. And I remember walking in there, and I don't know what I was asking. I went in there to request something, like every 6-year-old does. And my mom, like, gasping when either the first tower fell or maybe the second plane was running into the tower. I'm not sure. But I think based on, like, the timeline and our time zone, I bet it was when the first tower was falling. And that's when my mom gasped and just could not believe what she was watching.
I think I remember, and I was living in Alaska at the time, so there's another 2 hours later than that.
Oh wow, yeah. So you guys got this,
It was
like
like
the post.
so early.
You just
in the
woke
morning.
up and
mean, the
like,
first-
tragedy had already happened.
Yeah, the first plane had hit like at 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
So I don't remember a whole lot from that. I think I remember going to school though that same day. Because I was in 3rd grade, and I do remember them playing stuff about it on the
It was
TV.
a different day,
The TV at school.
but it was a different day.
And that's when I think I learned. I don't think I learned from home. Like, I don't know that my
really?
parents really told me about it until I got home. I could be remembering this all wrong.
Did they know about it, or did they just?
I'm sure they knew about it because another crazy thing was, so I had family in the Pentagon.
Oh my gosh!
So my uncle, so my mom's like biological uncle, my
I
uncle.
didn't know that because yeah, I thought you were only government type. Well, I mean, your dad was in the Navy. He was
And then
Navy
Rob.
pilot, and then your brother-in-law Rob, his family is heavy into government.
Yeah. And then, so my uncle worked in the Pentagon.
Wow.
So he was in the Pentagon when the plane hit the Pentagon. And I was talking to my mom about it after I read the book. I was like, do you remember like anything about that? And she's like, the only thing that I remember was talking to Aunt Michelle, my aunt,
Right.
because she was shopping like at Walmart or something when all this was going down, or after the first plane hit. She was shopping at Walmart. She remembers walking by the electronics section, and there's tons of people gathered around the electronics section, and they're living in DC at the time. Tons of people gathered around the electronics section. She's like, oh, they must just be replaying things about the towers getting hit. And everybody's like freaking out because they're obviously living in DC and all this is going down. And she then sees the news that the Pentagon had been hit. So she runs home, and she's been trying to talk to my Uncle Ron this whole time. And this is secondhand story from my mom. I wish I could have her on to kind of tell this story, but they live across the country.
Sure.
But then because of the cell phone network all being basically turned off, like no communication went anywhere around DC at the time.
Yeah,
She had no idea. Like they had no idea how he was doing until he came home that night because he wasn't allowed anywhere. So they went all day.
She didn't like try to go there.
No,
Did
you
they
weren't
have
allowed.
Kids.
Yeah, they have 2 kids. They were both alive at this time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So she's got to be home with them because I'm sure that every kid that was in school in the DC area did not go to school that day.
I mean, or got sent home because it was already 9 o'clock. A lot of kids were already at
Well,
school.
yeah, that's true. Kids in New York were in school when it happened.
I mean, there's that whole section of the book with the whole school in the tower. I mean, there was a school in one of the towers.
It was in the tower? I thought it was across the street.
No, I think there's one in the tower.
What?
I could be wrong on this. Again, some of this is all...
Yeah, this book is really good for firsthand accounts and to really understand like the emotion and the gravity of the day, like how significant of an impact this made. But like you miss out on all those like little details about like where the school was. There was a school in close vicinity or actually in a lower level of the tower. Not sure, I guess. I thought it was like across the street. I thought there were 2 schools across the street. There was one that was an elementary school and one that was that high school
I thought the high school was
with
in
like
the
a
tower.
financial emphasis.
Yeah, I thought that was in the tower.
That one I could see being in the tower because it's the World Trade Center and it's a high school that had a title that signified financial significance or something like that.
But yeah, the book, yeah. So I don't remember a whole lot from 9/11, honestly. I do know. So I asked my mom a couple things of like what she remembered about 9/11. And again, with it being in Alaska, it was so early in the morning. But one thing that she does remember was that because the FAA grounded all planes,
Right.
that included bush planes in Alaska. And September's like hunting season in Alaska. Like, I don't know anybody that knows Alaska, but like September 1st hits and it's like moose season. Like that. I mean, there are people that fly everywhere, all over Alaska.
Right.
And because nobody could fly,
Does your dad own a plane or did you guys just charter a little?
we chartered bus
Because
planes.
he would pilot them.
No, he wouldn't pilot them.
Oh, he wouldn't.
No, we had people fly. So every year growing up, we used to charter a little bush plane that would fly us out into the middle of nowhere, and we'd go hunting. We used to do that in September. Honestly, that was when we always did it. I was too young at this point. I started doing that when I was 11 with him. But there were, I mean, all over Alaska. That's what people do. There's a lot of Alaska, and there's not a lot of roads. So a lot of people take planes to go into these places. There were a lot of people that just didn't get picked up that day, that were supposed to get picked up because you couldn't fly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wait, they're in the middle of nowhere.
Literally the middle of nowhere, and there's no planes allowed in the air.
Yeah, dude, I don't know that I could do that. Like, that's a little bit intense where you're going, like, it's one thing if I could see owning a plane because your dad's a pilot and he owns a little prop plane. I mean, planes are uber expensive.
He does
a little one.
He doesn't own one. I wish he did.
Right, but I could see, like, if you own one, you fly out, you could,
Park your plane.
yeah, you could park and then you have the plane. But if you're chartering a plane, you just get dropped off in the middle of nowhere and you say, okay, rendezvous back at.
We did that forever. I mean, there was one time.
Oh my God.
There was one time where, I mean, it's crazy, but we were out sheep hunting in the Wrangles. The plane drops us off. We're supposed to be getting picked up. When we get dropped, this is a little bit of a tangent, but if you want to hear the story, we get dropped off in the middle of nowhere in the Wrangles. We usually leave like a tent and some extra food and stuff right where the plane's going to pick us up again. Then we go out. We set up like extra, like smaller camps as we hike throughout the mountains looking for sheep. And then we come back like 7 days later. Plane comes and picks us up. And we just carry a lot less gear with us, so you don't have to carry a big tent. You don't have to carry all this extra food and stuff, but it's all just there. So we go out, we're hunting the whole time. We don't get anything. And we come back and a bear ate everything.
And probably tore up the tent.
Ate half the tent. It ate everything. All of our food, half the tent. And it's just made a huge mess everywhere. Not only that, this bear, we can see along, it is circling us for the next couple days.
Do bears kind of pick a territory and then they don't really leave?
I don't know.
Do they migrate?
It was a South Cubs. It was a big bear because it was a big grizzly bear, South Cubs. So you're not allowed to shoot it because it has cubs unless it's attacking you.
Yeah, if it's me or the bear.
Well, unless it's attacking you, but you have to again report that to fishing game. So it's just circling us for the next couple days. And because we get back to base camp, no food, and it starts to snow and the visibility is super low. So the plane's not picking us up the next day when it's supposed to. So
How far by plane are you from where you took off?
So we are, again, this is a little fuzzy. I was like 15 or 16 on this trip.
Sure.
We got double plane. So we took a medium-sized plane about 30 minutes, and then it dropped all of us off.
By medium-sized plane, is it like a small jet?
No, it's like a four-seater bush plane instead of a two-seater bush plane.
Okay.
So we took a medium-sized plane.
Like you have a seat. You're not hanging on the outside is what you're telling me.
No, this second.
I went from medium. Your medium was still a tiny, tiny plane.
Oh, no, it's tiny. So this medium plane flies me about 30 minutes out and drops me off. Then flies back to this small village called McCarthy. It's a town of 100 people.
Nice.
and then picks up my dad and flies him all the way to the final destination because the medium-sized plane didn't have enough fuel to go that far. Or actually, no, it's not the fuel. It's that it couldn't land on the terrain. It had to have like an actual strip. And this guy had built a strip on this river. I don't know. It had something to do with fuel, like the way that he wanted to come back and forth.
So you were like halfway. Your dad went the whole way.
Yeah, he went like an hour out. And then this dude came back for me with the small plane, took me to my dad, and then flew all the way back.
Oh, weird.
It was very strange. But all in all, it's like an hour and some change, I think. Flight time to this little tiny spot. It was far. It's like across a giant glacier, all this kind of stuff. It was far out there. And it began to snow down. It just got really, really foggy, started snowing. And because the bear had eaten all our food, we didn't have a whole lot of food left. Yeah. We were just like rationing food, my dad and I. And then it snowed for, I think, 2 days. We were 2 days over our trip when it was supposed to be. We were out there an extra 2 days, no extra food. And the snow was like slowly coming down the valley. And if the snow had been on the bottom of the valley, the plane couldn't land. And so we would have had to hike to the next available spot for this plane to come pick us up. It was like across a glacier.
Word. Do you know where that is too?
Yeah, so we have GPS.
So I was going to say, like, the preparation for this must just be your only chance of survival if things go south.
Yeah, we have a GPS. We know where the next spot is. The sucky part is that because the bear ate our food, my dad and I had like, I think 1 pack of top ramen and 2 power bars between the two of us, and we would have had to hike out to this spot.
Nice.
And we were like, literally, it's like the clouds parted, the plane came through, picked us up, and then parted back. Like one more day, we would have been hiking across this glacier, no food, to this next spot. It was kind of sketchy. That was like this,
kind of sketchy. The whole idea is sketchy.
The whole time there's this bear like literally circling us.
Yeah, it like forget the bear. Like, the fact that you are dropped off in the middle of nowhere with 0 chance of survival, like on foot, blows my mind. Because I grew up in Utah, right? Utah, not a huge population, a lot of big open area, but I promise you, put me anywhere in the state and I will find something somewhere. There is just there's no amount of ground that's uncoverable.
Yeah.
Like you can cover, I mean, I guess I don't know how far you can go in a day. I actually got a good sense of what 100 miles feels like in that race recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, since the last podcast.
You did a century on a bike.
Century bike race. It was good. Not as hard as I thought it'd be. Legs weren't tired, but your body does not want to be on a bike anymore. Like your shoulders, and your neck, and your back. That stuff really hurts. But like, I don't know, you start at 7 and I was done like by late lunch. I don't think it took 4 hours. I don't know, which is just kind of mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
Like you ride 100 miles and then you still have a day left? That seems weird. So I don't know. I don't know how far you can make it on foot. I've never walked that far in a day. I don't know if you can make it 100 miles in a day, but if you can make it, you can make it 50.
I don't
walking?
Know. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know how far we could have made it. I know it probably would have taken us a couple days to get to the next spot. Because, I mean, it wasn't just like walking on pavement. I mean, it was across a glacier.
Yeah, that's true. You're hiking. You're trying not to fall in a crevice. A crevice and be lost forever.
Gone forever.
There's probably a better chance of you being rescued from deep space than a crevice in a glacier in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So it was pretty scary. So that's my scary rescue story. And as a 15-year-old, I was absolutely terrified. But we made it. We're still here. But
September, all those planes are grounded and people are stranded.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine because you don't have any communication. Like me and my dad just sat there waiting for this plane for 3 days. Like we literally just sat in this tent, meandered around this valley, kept an eye on this bear, and just waited. Every day we just looked up at the clouds like, do you think it could make it past that? No, I don't think so. But if there was a clear day, if there's just no plane coming. You're like, did they forget about me? Like, did that pilot have a heart attack? Does anybody have a contingency plan? Like, dude, you don't have any communication and you are out in the middle of nowhere. Like, it'd be terrifying. Plus, then you come back and you realize, like,
Yeah, I don't think I could do that.
dude, I missed out.
Yeah.
I missed out on night, like, not missed out, but like you
missed out on 9/11.
But no, like you come
yeah,
back
you
and the
come
world
back-
it's different. It's a
That's
whole different
probably-
world.
Yeah, that's probably not the world you were expecting to come back to.
Yeah, I mean, you're like, what the heck? You were gone, and the guy's like, dude, we're in a different. Like that day changed so much.
It changed everything for the United States. It was a huge turning point. I think one of the really important pieces that is only just a few sentences in this book, but is actually a huge ripple, like massive impact on like how the United States and government was shaped post 9/11 was something that Dick Cheney said. Dick Cheney's quoted in this book, and he's saying, I'm obviously going to paraphrase because I can't remember the quote directly, but he says something to the effect of, people say that I'm a different person after 9/11, and he says that I can't totally agree with that, but watching Americans die or like watching this tragedy unfold, he got a better understanding of his responsibilities. And so I think like 9/11 was a huge driving factor behind a lot of the decisions that Dick Cheney made as a vice president and the role that he took on, the very active role that he took on as vice president. I feel like not a lot of vice presidents like Mike Pence and Kamala Harris, holy cow, I don't really feel like they do a whole lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's by design. I don't know if that has to do with the presidency and what like decisions that the president makes and says like, no, you're not going to be a very active president or vice president. But Dick Cheney was a very active vice president.
Yeah.
And I think he was because of 9/11.
I think one thing that I do appreciate about this book is that, I mean, the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, weapons of mass destruction, basically the whole shebang is very politicized.
Right.
You know, like there are people that stand on both sides of the camp, and I don't really want to get into that. Like,
It's also kind of, you can see a lot of both sides of the camp too. It's not like
it's a very gray area in American history.
right, very gray.
However, what I do love about this book is regardless of what side of that camp you sit on, the book is not about that.
No, yeah, and that was
At
really
all.
nice. That was really nice because this book is really for everyone.
Yeah, it is not about like reasons why we went into Afghanistan or like
Nope.
it's not even about the hijackers at all. It's not about like the
No.
political motivations of the hijackers or the, you know,
No.
anything about that. What the book is about and why the book I think is so powerful is because the book is about the people of that day, like the people that experienced 9/11. That's it. It's about the firefighters. It's about the police officers. It's about people in the towers, and it's about the families and the people in all the planes and the people in the Pentagon. Like that's all it's about. It doesn't. I mean, it does have a little bit of, you know, the president and the vice president and what they were doing, their responses, but only on that day. Like it doesn't dive super deep into
Like what were the motivations behind them going to war after that, and what was the political response and stuff like that. It talks nothing about that, and that is really, really refreshing. I feel like you don't get that.
No.
Anything that involves government is now also politics.
Yeah, it's always spun, and a lot of history is also spun that way. You know, like there are.
Or even 9/11. Like every time people talk about 9/11, there's a lot of mixed feelings because 9/11, like after 9/11, there was Afghanistan. And it's like, and then now it's a political topic. And 9/11 really shouldn't be a political topic.
No, 9/11 should be
The most tragic day in American history.
Yeah. I was trying to look up like to scale for people to understand like what the scale of 9/11 was. Cause I think sometimes, and I think I fall into this category a lot of times, you know, I'm like, oh yeah, people died on 9/11. You know what I mean?
a
Like,
lot.
but like, what really is that number? But it's
I think start with Pearl Harbor. How many people? Because Pearl Harbor is the second deadliest day.
yeah, and they're pretty close. So Pearl Harbor, the official death toll was 2,403. So just a little over 2,100.
Wow. Okay,
Or
so
2,400. 2,400.
9/11 barely beat it.
Yeah, so 2,400 on Pearl Harbor. 9/11 was... It was still in the 2000s. But
Yeah, it was like 2,600 something, which is a lot of people. 2,600 and some odd people. I love how the book starts. The book has a preface where it's actually the author speaking. Well, in the audiobook, I don't know if it's actually his voice, but it's the words of the author as opposed to quotes from first-hand accounts. And the author talks about...
One sec. 2,996.
Oh, so almost 3,000.
Just under
people.
3,000.
Wow. Jeez. But no, the book starts with talking about some statistics of all the people affected. I don't know if you remember that because it's been a little bit since you've listened to the book.
It's been about a month.
Oh, okay. So, no, yeah, it starts with statistics and talks about all, like, yes, there's 2,900 people that died, but there is tens of thousands of people who are now affected. Tens of thousands of people who grew up
Without fathers, without
mothers, or both. Mm-hmm. And
siblings.
yeah.
Sons, daughters.
Yep.
I mean, that was one thing that was so powerful in this book was they hit every angle of it. So there were, parents that talked about children dying. Mm-hmm. There were, wives talking about their husbands, husbands talking about their wives, children talking about their parents. And
in some cases, both.
Yeah.
Which is so tragic. Like, there was a lot of cases where I think there was in just Tower 1, there was a father and a son who both worked in there separately, not at the same company. And
the father survives.
Yeah, the father survives, and he talks about his son who had suffered from anxiety and panic attacks. And when he called his mom, because the son had tried to call the dad, did not get a hold of him. And then the son called the mom and reassures the mom that dad's going to be okay. And he himself has suffered with anxiety. And he's calm and collected and comforting his mother. And he didn't even make it.
Yeah.
And the dad did.
What honestly I think touched me the most was like the amount of sacrifice and heroes that were there at 9/11. Like, again, I think the book is so good.
Yeah, the people that died are running up the stairs.
Yeah. The book is so good at not taking a political stance that you can read this book and just truly appreciate the people that sacrificed their lives. I mean, I can't tell you, like you were talking about at the beginning of the episode, how many times it said, I saw Joe running up the stairs. He's on floor 40, whatever. Yeah, and that was the last time anybody ever saw him. And it's just talking about firefighters that were...
Yeah, countless firefighters, but then oftentimes not.
Yes, individual people.
Just a dude.
People stepping up to the situation. Yeah. So what do you think makes somebody step up to a situation like that? Do you think that's something that...
I think it's something you're born with.
Do you think that a lot of people are born with it?
I do. That's kind of what I was talking about at the start.
You think when push comes to shove that
there's the internet weirdos who won't. And then there's the regular people who I don't think that population has shrunk. Like I think that population is bigger than we think. And like I don't know. I feel like that is, I don't know. I recently ran into an individual. There's an individual in my neighborhood who is not, he was not born in the United States. He was born in Yugoslavia and then grew up in Italy and eventually migrated to the United States. And he was recently like voicing some concerns about celebrating founding fathers and how much that frustrated him. But honestly, I think the way this country was founded and how it came to be honestly shaped that type of person. And I'm not saying that Americans are the only type of people that can be that, but I do say, I do believe, I honestly believe that the way that the United States was shaped, like from the beginning, has carried on for decades and decades and decades, generations and generations.
So what?
And that type
just
of
so that I can
person who is willing to sacrifice themselves for a greater good or for the death of lesser people, I think that exists because of how the country was founded.
So you're talking about like the American spirit.
Yeah, I think that like that American spirit, I think honestly carries on today, and it dwindles and it gets less and less. And I'm not saying that, here it's the American spirit, but like in other countries, it's something else. Even though they'll do the same thing in other places. So I think that the United States has people that will do that. And I only have some experience with one other country, Germany.
Yeah.
And there was one time I was on a bus in Germany in Oberhausen, and we were just headed to the train station. We cut the bus and headed to the train station. And I believe I was with Elder Smith. And the bus got in an accident. And like people went flying, dude. Like people in buses, like, it is as dangerous as you might think it would be.
Wait, you were in the bus when it got hit?
Oh yeah. And it was just a fender bender, but we stopped so fast that people just went flying over a rail or like they hit a thing. And nobody was helping anybody.
Really?
Yeah. Like the lady who cut the bus off ran onto the bus and said, "Does anybody need an ambulance? Does anybody need an ambulance?" Because they knew they had made a mistake and they knew that they had to make it right, I guess. I mean, like, they went from making a mistake to trying to help. There was only like one old lady who was kind of hurt. She had like fallen. She was up towards the front of the bus and we were in the back of the bus. And she had kind of like flipped over one of the rails and just kind of landed hard, and she was old. But like, dude, everybody just got off the bus and just walked away. And that was it. And that kind of like blew my mind. I mean, it wasn't a bad accident, but it was just, nobody asked anybody if they were okay. It was just like drones got up and got their stuff and left.
Yeah.
And that was the end of it. And I don't feel like that happens in the United States. I feel like if you're on a bus with someone, you get in an accident, there is now some form of camaraderie that exists there. But I will say that there's like weird camaraderie between people in Europe and elevators. When you're in an elevator with someone, you say hello and you say goodbye. And that is very different from here.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I think that exists places. I think it still exists today. And I don't think that's just me being like a hopeful person. But I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I kind of almost thought that this past year would have done it. Or like the pandemic would have done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that certainly made people
I feel
just
like
care. Like, I don't know. Everybody
care
was
less.
an individual, and it's all about the individual. And I don't
everybody
like
was
that.
at each other's throats. Everybody was mean. They were trying to find somebody to blame. I feel like there was maybe 2 or 3 days of the pandemic when everybody got together and said, "Hey, we're going to flatten the curve and we're going to try."
Sure. Yeah.
And then it instantly became, what team are you on?
Yeah, you masked or not masked, or you vaxxed or not vaxxed, or you...
And it was rampant on both sides. I mean, people made fun of you
Yeah.
if you had a mask, and people literally thought you were killing grandma if you didn't have a mask. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And that was a time when I would have expected it to be more like 9/11. You know, I would have expected
I think,
a little bit more, hey, we're all in this together.
but it's the difference between the bus and the elevator. It's weird. I feel like it's not so much the difference in person, it's the difference in mode. And I don't know why, but like when Americans band together and they can say, oh, there's a group of terrorists that hate us, then we can all collectively hate them. But when it's like,
But the day wasn't even about the terrorists. The day was
No one
about
knows.
other Americans. Ultimately, 9/11,
sure, yeah.
9/11
the
the
book
day,
did a great job about that. But like,
9/11
but
the
it
day,
did talk about, like, there were talks of Al Qaeda in the book a little bit because people talked, like, that was very quickly on the news after the 102 minutes or however thing.
after the second tower got hit, and the Pentagon. Once all three got hit, people knew that it wasn't an accident, which was crazy. That initially, again, this was stuff that I learned, and I think everybody should have just a very thorough history of this. I really do want to read a book on Pearl Harbor and like understand Pearl Harbor more, because
Have you ever been there? I've been there.
I wish there are a lot of places I haven't been that I really want to go visit. A lot of like historical sites. Like I've never even been to the East Coast. Like I'd love to go to the.
I've never been to the East Coast.
I'd
Well, I
love
guess
to go
I have
to
been. I've been
the.
to South Carolina.
I mean, I've been to like Georgia and Florida, but
Sure.
the South. But I've never been to like New York, and you know, I'd love to go to the 9/11 Memorial, go to Ground Zero.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
But I just think, you know, having an appreciation of what it was like on the day, I think is important. And I think, you know, understanding what all happened and what people's mindsets were, it again kind of makes it bigger than just you and what you're doing every
and
single
I
day.
do love stuff that makes, like, I hate tragedy and I hate this tragedy, but I love, like, seeing that come out of it.
Seeing the American spirit come out of people, like
Yeah.
the human.
Yeah. It sucks that it takes that
Yeah, I
to
mean,
pull it out of people.
to pull it out of people, but you really do.
Yeah.
It's crazy that the absolute worst in humanity also brings out the absolute best. You know, like somebody doing that and killing 3,000 people brought out, you know, some of the most selfless acts to ever happen.
Ever exist.
Yeah, I mean, truly thinking about others over yourself until the very last step.
There was one too that stood out. It was oh heck, now I'm gonna forget the flight number. Flight 93, right? The fourth plane.
The fourth plane that never hit anything.
Fourth plane that never hit anything. Landed in the middle of nowhere,
That
Pennsylvania.
That
I mean,
one-
that is the hardest.
That-
That is like the
that part of the story was the hardest part for me. So I don't cry a whole lot. I didn't cry at our wedding. My wife and I's wedding, didn't cry at any of our kids. I don't cry.
yeah. We had a mutual friend pass.
Yeah,
We're at the funeral.
my cousin,
And yeah. and you are
stone
a
cold.
psychopath.
Yeah. And
I was crying.
I know.
And I've met him 5 times.
I mean, I've known Mason for so long.
Yeah.
And I just don't cry. I have a really hard time with it. And it's not that I don't feel bad or I'm not sad or anything, but I was driving from Utah to Idaho. I make this drive so many times because we lived in Utah for 8 years, or I lived in Utah for like 8 years. And so I have a lot of friends and family down here. And so make this drive quite a bit. But I was listening to this book on one of my drives from Utah back up to Idaho, back home. And it got to the section on Flight 93 when the husband.
You've been listening to. Did you start it on this drive?
No. I had started this on. I think I had started it on the drive down. So I had
it?
drive down from Utah. I listened to it while I was here in Utah a little bit, and then I'm listening to it on the drive back up to Utah. It is pouring buckets outside. Like it is like windshield wipers as fast as you can go. And I hear that phone call from the husband talking to his wife saying, tell goodbye to our kids, because he knows what he has
Yeah,
to
he
do.
asks where the kids are.
Yeah. And he knows what he's going to do. That he is going to.
Well, but he talks about it with his wife, and the wife even agrees.
Yeah.
She's like, no, you guys have to get control of that plane.
Yeah.
Like,
So for those of you who don't know, there were 4 planes that were hijacked. There were the 2 that hit the towers.
the first one was
Tower
American
1.
Airlines 11.
Tower 2, 7 something, 727 or something like that. Then there's the plane that hit the Pentagon, and then there was one plane that never made it. And there are recordings.
And it was going for the
White House.
White House, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there are recordings of passengers on the plane talking to their families because the plane had already been hijacked, and they knew that it had been hijacked.
Right.
And
Well, what's crazy to me is back then, like, cell phones were a thing. I don't know when the first iPhone
I don't think
came
that
out.
was a cell phone that they were talking on, though. Was it? I can't remember. Was it? I thought it was
Because the airplanes have a phone.
Yeah.
I was on a plane because we were in Myrtle Beach a couple of weeks ago, and Lucy had to get up and go to the bathroom for the umpteenth time. And I was in the back of the plane where the flight attendants usually get things ready, and Lucy was in the bathroom. Nobody was back there, and I was like, well, I'm going to look around. And I didn't touch anything, but I found that phone.
Just flipping switches.
Yeah, I just like doing everything but opening the door.
Just masks fall down.
No, but I actually saw that phone. And so when the book starts and it talks about the flight attendant on flight 11 talking on that phone, I was like, oh my gosh, that's that phone at the back of the plane. So I guess, yes, they were maybe talking on that one, or were they talking?
There may have been cell phones.
Because that's what I wondered is, are they flying low enough?
This happened on the last
What is
episode
that?
too. I don't know. Is it the top of the... I don't know.
Yeah, it sounded like something.
Walking around.
Yeah, it's also haunted, so have fun.
Sweet.
Oh.
It's the water heater.
Oh, no, I think Olivia is just in that. Like, it just sounds funny in that. Like, the headset makes it sound different.
Yeah.
Anyways, so sidetracked. Like, we're just dogs that saw a squirrel. No, I thought maybe they were low enough that some of them, the few of them that had cell phones,
I mean, it may have been.
could have cell
I can't
service.
entirely remember what they said that they were calling on.
Sure.
But it plays that section in the book when I'm driving. And I literally almost had to pull over. I have not cried that hard since my dog died when I was 14 years old. Like our family dog. It
Like a
was,
baby.
I mean, just so emotional. Like the amount of sacrifices that went into that day all around to save other people. Whether it was the passengers on that plane, whether it was, again, the firefighters, whether it was police officers, whether it was anybody that went. I mean, you haven't got to this section, but I mean, once everything settles down, I mean, there's a cleanup crew that's involved, and there's complications from that as well. I mean, there's so much rubble, there's so much like soot and ash in the air that, like, I mean, cancer, all sorts of like secondary, tertiary, like different effects that come from the people that volunteered their lives at both Ground Zero as well as in the Pentagon. I mean, there was so much sacrifice that went into that day that, again, I think it all gets muddled with politics sometimes. And we just don't realize that the reason why we not celebrate 9/11, but remember 9/11, celebrate's not the right word, but the reason why it is such a special day in American history and the reason why we remember it every year is not because of what happened after. It's because of the Americans that rose to the occasion on the day of 9/11.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's amazing. It is, I mean, one amazing story after the other. And it was so cool to see it in this book. I mean, I can't even imagine what the author's experience would have been going in and talking to each one of these individuals. I mean, he collects, I mean, he talks about
and
at the
that's
beginning
what
of the book that I mean, there's so much that he had to throw out.
Yeah, he poured through a bunch of archives too.
Mm-hmm.
How much of this was him doing interviews?
I don't
What
know.
was the author's name?
I don't know how much of it was. I know he does a lot of interviews, but I mean, I'm taken back by all of these stories. I could not imagine how many stories he heard that he even had to cut that like nobody else knows. Like
Garrett M. Graff.
Like he has to have just the most unbelievable appreciation for all of this.
Yeah. There are probably few people in the world who really understand the impact it had on people better than he does.
Yeah.
Just in the making of this book, it would be inevitable. But.
Yeah. So how do you think, I mean, do you think that, I don't want to get too political because that's one thing that I did love about the book is that it doesn't get too political, but how do you think people would react, or do you think politicians would react the same today as they did then? What do you think the reaction would be? Again, I just feel like we're
I don't know.
We're in such a different spot in history.
One thought that I had while listening to this book, because you can't listen to this book and wonder that, right? Like if there has ever been a point in history that warranted a presidential speech or intervention, it was now. And like it's so hard to imagine something like that happening, and like whether it was recently with Trump or now with Joe Biden, I like can't see either of them like like
rising to the occasion.
Well, yeah, like I don't see either of them rising to the occasion. And I actually wonder like if this book is so important because it gives people that perspective, and it might change the way people vote. It might change like
what's important.
Yeah. Like people that I can see rising to the occasion is George Bush, and people can speculate about how he rose to the occasion, whatever. You can picture him because he did it. And then Barack Obama. Like Barack Obama was a very like statesman type.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was very like straight laced. So you could just like he just very presidential. You know?
Yeah.
It was how he carried himself. And I don't feel like the last two presidents have done that.
No. And I feel like that would be my assumption as well. I feel like, and the only thing that I have to go off of is, and it's not even, I don't think as close as 9/11, but it is COVID and the pandemic. And I just feel like instead of uniting, there was always this happened because of this person. There was always the blame game.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That like this bad thing happened because of that person, or this good thing happened because of me.
Yes. Always.
It was always taking credit for it. I don't feel like George Bush took credit for anything during that.
Or blamed anybody.
And Barack Obama never would have taken credit for anything during that.
It's not like he got up and he was like, the reason why this happened was because of the failed policies of, and just starts naming off former presidents. You know what I mean?
Or like if it was Trump, he would have blamed the mayor of New York City.
He would have blamed Obama. He would have gone up and
he would have blamed Obama.
He would have gone up and been like, this is from the horrible policies of our last president.
AOC, who's the senator of New York, or House representative of New York, I can't remember. Politician from New York. He would have blamed Democrats from New York.
Yeah. For terrible responses. And I just feel like
that's not the type of person you should be voting for.
No. And if anything from reading this book, it's what I really like, I guess, what I felt at the end of this book was like a yearning to be American together again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I got to the end of this book and I was like, we came together at that moment. it didn't matter who you were, where you were from, what your story was. Like, we were Americans through and through. And what that meant was that, like, you were willing to lay down your life for your fellow Americans. Like, that's what that taught pretty much everybody. It was that when push comes to shove, and they're like, in the most extreme situations, it's not about anything more than your brothers, your sisters, those that are, in the tower, those that need the help. That's what we're there for. And if we could just get back to a time when it's not us versus them, but we're Americans first, and that's the message.
Yeah.
And that's the message that I feel like needs to be pushed by everybody, like pushed by
politicians,
pushed by the right, pushed by the left. And it's a message that I feel like resonates with people. At least it resonated with me. Like, that book and that message resonated with me more than any political message or any political speech or anything that I've heard in the last 8 years by far. You know what I mean? Like, no Trump rally or Biden speech or anything like that made me feel more American than the stories and the actions of Americans fighting for Americans.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think, yeah, because you talk about how that resonates with you and how togetherness resonates with you. And I think it does with everyone. It's just not everybody wakes up and chooses togetherness. People wake up and they look at Twitter or X or whatever it's called, and YouTube and Instagram and whatever, and it fuels hate inside people, or it fuels disgust towards a type of person, whether that be another political party person or whether that be like just something else. It fuels difference rather than like finding common ground. And like the whole idea of social media was that it brings people together to find common ground, but it doesn't do that. But books do that.
Yeah.
Which is so odd to me. Like, because by design, I don't feel like that. By design, a book is supposed to give information. That information could be a story. That information could be an account of something that happened. That information could just be facts about something, like a textbook. And I feel like books bring people together better than just about any other form of content. I think movies can be kind of close.
Yeah. I think it has to do with stories. I think stories bring people together.
Yeah, that's probably it.
I think stories bring people together. And I think especially powerful stories.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think people are severely lacking in powerful stories. I think
They just don't pursue that anymore.
Mm-mm.
They pursue just that quick relationship that makes you frustrated.
Yeah. And there are a lot of powerful stories in history, and this is just one of them, but it is one that I feel like a lot of people can relate to just because of the recency of it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure Pearl Harbor is another story that would do the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's harder generation from generation. But this was our parents' generation's Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Pearl Harbor was our grandparents, and 9/11 was our parents.
Do you think it takes an event like this to bring people together? Because I've heard that on multiple podcasts and news things, and it always makes my skin kind of crawl a little bit when I hear it. But I've heard people say, in order to bring people together again, we're going to need a 9/11 event like that. Like, that's like a saying that I've heard. And
Yeah.
do you feel like it takes an event like that to get a response like 9/11? Or do you think that that's something that we can manufacture through stories?
On a national level, like, facts are facts. like unpleasant facts are still facts. And I think I think at an individual level, you can live your day like day by day, make decisions that kind of make you struggle. Right? I don't know. I feel like for so long, like I've been going to the gym for years and years and years. And I don't see like insane amounts of results, because I feel like for the longest time I've been that person that wants to see results, but I'm not that person who enjoys the struggle. I'll endure the struggle, but I haven't enjoyed the struggle. But with cycling, and especially this last 100-mile race, like I realized, especially at the end of the race, there was no like, oh, I did it. This is amazing. Amazing feeling. I did this thing. No, it was my back is going to break in half. It just hurts. And it was just from 7 a.m. to whenever I ended, it was just pain. But I did that with a bunch of other people. Dude, you should have seen some of these people on this race. I don't think these people could walk a mile, let alone ride a bike 100 miles. There were some people that should not have been there. There was obviously some cyclists that were just killers.
Yeah.
And I was not one of them. But, of the 50 people, I maybe finished around 20th. And there were some people out there that just did it and just struggled through it and powered through it. And it was just cool. Like, I made probably 4 or 5 friends out there, because you just you get up next to someone, you kind of stack up for a little while, and then you drop them or they drop you, and then you run into another person and you just meet them along the way. But you meet them because you're out there struggling with them. And that's the whole point. That's the whole reason any of them ride, is not because of this huge, there is no reward. There is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
You're out there for the struggle. You're out there to just endure pain together. And I feel like people at a community level can live their life and make day-to-day decisions and find that. But unity on a national level, probably takes an awful thing, like a tragic event.
So you're saying that the struggle is what brings people together, and you can struggle
pain
one-on-one together, doing difficult tasks together, but as a nation,
what it is enduring pain. Like if 2 people are enduring pain together,
there's a level of empathy.
There's at the very least an understanding, at the bare minimum. Now, where you find the heroes is when you have 2 people who are enduring pain and one of them offers to help the other. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
That blows your mind away. And that's the type of thing that you look at and you hear about and you're like, I don't even know if I could do that. That sounds so hard. But with 9/11, that happened thousands of times that day.
Yeah.
And so I think things like that really bring people together so fast.
Yeah. But my only argument against that would be, I get that point, and I 100% agree with you, but people across the country that didn't experience any of that pain and that suffering still were brought together through that.
Because they wanted, they felt a little bit of guilt because they didn't feel any pain. They wanted to lighten the load. They wanted to bear a little bit of that pain. We want to do that. That's why you were crying your eyes out.
Yeah.
That's why anybody would when they read this or listen to this, is that it makes them mad that they couldn't have been there to help.
Yeah. You feel the pain of others.
Yeah. Any good person listening to this will want to help.
Yeah.
Wishes that they could have helped in some capacity. Some people to the extent that they'll lay down their life. And other people wish that they could have just been that shopkeeper who was just handing out water bottles as fast as he could and just giving up all of his store inventory, right?
Yeah.
He didn't lay down his life to save people. He certainly is a hero that day, but like on some level, people love to help.
Yeah.
And in those instances, it's just so obvious where you can help. And in other instances, it's
It's just not as obvious. People,
it's just not as obvious.
so it's a wake up call. Is what, like it's an event that pulls people out of themselves. Because
Yeah.
people are so into themselves. They're
Yeah.
so into what I'm doing.
Yeah.
What I mean, I think for a lot of people it has to do with honestly, it has to do with like where am I gonna get most people don't have enough money to most people live paycheck to paycheck. It's like, where am I going to get enough money to feed my family? Where am I going to, like, I need to be doing this. I need to be doing this. Me, my family. Like, it's all about, like, and then for some people, it's, even worse than that. It's, it's just self-absorption into like my cell phone and, my Instagram and, all of that. Like there's definitely worse than that. But an event like 9/11 is what pulls people out of me and makes you feel.
Yeah, pulls people literally, like without consent, without your choice.
Yeah.
Will pull you out. And the event has to have enough pain associated with it, but it's just like what if it was a small thing? Like let's say on 9/11 it was a car bomb that blew up and killed some people, and people were rushing through, and there's people with dust on them, and they run into that shop. I don't know that shopkeeper or myself as a shopkeeper would hand out my inventory willingly and just get rid of everything to help these people, right? Depends on how close I am to the car bomb. But in those instances where it's
the scale.
The scale is off the charts, unprecedented, and people are running in there with dirt so far clogged in their throat and in their nose that they're having to pull it out with their hands.
Yeah.
Like that will pull somebody out of themselves so fast.
Yeah.
And without warning. So I do think that yes, people can do that. The tragedy is that it takes a lot to get there.
Do you think books like this can get people there?
I think it helps. I mean, I think it's a wake-up call for myself, even reading the book. I've never experienced something as tragic as this firsthand, ever, and likely never will. But looking at the tragedy that COVID was, whether you say it was a deadly virus or not, it was a tragedy because of
the amount of suffering that it inflicted.
The amount of suffering that it caused, whether that be shame that others imposed on other individuals, or whether that be through direct illness, or whether that be through lost loved ones.
Yeah, or through loss of job, through isolation, depression. I mean, there was a lot of negative that happened over the past. I mean, since 2020. I mean, 2020 to now, so much negative affecting people.
The numbers around COVID are politicized, and so we don't need to talk about specifics of those numbers, but
everybody was affected.
The event of COVID affected literally everyone.
Yeah.
And it killed like magnitudes, so many more than 9/11 did. But yeah, that did not bring people together.
No.
And I think a lot of it was because they didn't have something that pulled them out of themselves. They had things that pushed them into themselves.
Yeah, it was the isolation, bringing yourself alone.
Yeah.
It was protect, do your job, instead of, there was no come together. I mean, there was for that slight second of come together and flatten the curve. And I think everybody agreed that was a good thing. I think everybody
it was like really soon after lockdowns, like after the first lockdown. I remember
I think everybody was like,
yeah,
let's stay home for a week or two and see what we can do. But then after that, it was everything changed.
Yeah, really quick.
And it became about me again. Me, my health, me.
Yeah, it became a civil war. Yeah.
And I just, it makes me very interested.
Nobody stepped up to be a hero.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. So people did, and
People
it's
did.
probably unfair for us to like say that no heroes.
No. There were
I'm sure that
they're frontline
well, you don't
workers.
hear,
There were
well, yeah, there's frontline workers, there's hospital workers,
who didn't understand. I mean, this was a brand new virus. Nobody knew
No.
what was going to happen.
but
And there
they
were
did
people
absolutely everything they could, and they worked themselves to death,
absolutely.
and they saved. What sucks is that you can't count exactly how many people they saved.
But I just think the biggest difference is, like you said, it was this event pulled everybody out of themselves. Yeah. And you became more than yourself. You became an American. It was, how can I help you? Even if you weren't there, even if you weren't, didn't matter, race, age, gender, anything. It was, we're Americans, and how can I help you?
Yeah, if your heart beat, then
it was not about me anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that is, I guess, the biggest tragedy of COVID, in my opinion, is that we never got to a point for the majority of Americans. Now, like I said, there were heroes, and I do think that there were people who put their lives on the line, or people who went into the unknown, ventured into the unknown to really step up to the plate. But I don't think as a country we pulled people out of themselves. And I don't know if that's because people are more into themselves now than they were back then, or if it was just the magnitude of the event, or if it's just that people didn't rise to the occasion. But regardless of what it was, reading this book made me like yearn for people to go back to that. It gave me a small taste of what we're truly capable as human beings, and like what level of empathy, what level of love you can have as human beings and as Americans. And it's just sad that doesn't. It's sad,
yeah. It's sad that doesn't happen every day.
No.
Yeah.
And it should be and 9/11 should most definitely be remembered as a terrible day, but also a day where Americans did rise to the occasion.
Yeah, where ordinary people were heroes.
Came out of them, left them, where, again, people went bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
And thought about more than just me, I. And that's what made this story so amazing and so touching. And what makes the book so amazing is because it's just story after story after story after story of people doing that.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I mean, yeah. And everyone. I remember there is one fact I want to hit on because it blew my mind. So Flight 93 is still in the air, and the military is trying to make a response. They're trying to do something, and they were able to scramble 2 jets, and it was a guy and a lady fighter pilot, and I don't remember their names. Oh, her last name was Moneypenny. I do remember that. I don't know. I'll never forget that, actually. They took off with no guns. Their jets were in the air and could not shoot anything down.
Because they didn't have enough time to load them.
Well, but their job was to shoot down confirmed hijacked planes. Mm-hmm. And so their job was to shoot down Flight 93. But they did not have guns, and they could not get in the air with guns. They couldn't even get into the air with all of their computers turned on. The plane was halfway on when they were in the air. And I forget both their names, but one of them said, "I'll hit the cockpit," and the other one said, "I'll hit the tail." They were just going to hit the plane midair to take it out. Like that blew my mind. And they took off without a moment's notice. Yeah. Their commanding officer said something to the effect of, he was basically giving them permission to fire, but he knew that they didn't have guns. And so he said, "Do you know what that means?" And they said, "Yes." And they took off.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's insane.
Again, just people rising to the occasion.
Well, I feel like there's so many armed service members who just they have that in them every day,
Yeah.
and they're ready to do it at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of days throughout the year that we appreciate them, but like 9/11 is a great reason to appreciate armed service members,
Armed service.
as well as firefighters and
Police
police
officers.
officers and first responders, like, because they all do that every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, it was an amazing story. So, what would you recommend this book on a scale of, or what would you rate this book on a scale of 0 to 5 for importance and fun to read?
Importance, yeah, like 5 out of 5 for sure. Absolutely. But I feel like this should be read at a high school level.
I feel like every
I don't remember if
American should read
if I
this
said
book.
that before the podcast or at the start of the podcast, but yes, every American should read this book if they haven't already. And I think it would be so hard for a teacher to get approval for a book like this in a high school. But I think like a junior or senior level high school student, it would rock their world, but it would give them such an appreciation for people that choose to be heroes. And they would have such good role models to look up to.
Yeah.
They would find role models in the people in this book. And I think that would be awesome. And it would be such a cool experience to, like, you know, like as the desks are set up, I can picture it. Like each of them are reading a quote, you know, one at a time, just in row, and they all read out loud. And the teacher's walking around with the book, or, you know, and it would be tough. It would be tough. I mean, kids are crying in school that day for sure. Like, absolutely. And that's tough to deal with. And I don't know. I could see a lot of parents, like, I don't know, not liking that because it puts their kid through a thing that is emotionally difficult. It's emotionally difficult to read this book.
But it's important to
But
do
is
difficult things.
It is an absolute necessity to read this book. And like, especially for our generation, because our generation is just too young to remember it, or you lived too far in the middle of Russia to actually remember it happening.
Yeah.
But
it's just
that is
soon
just
enough
so-
that you can,
yeah, you can almost remember it,
yeah,
how it was.
like it's so important.
Yeah. It's so important and fun to read. This book, the way it's structured, because I want to be a little bit strict because I'm reading so many books lately. We're going to say like a 4 out of 5 on the fun to read scale. Well, that was the other,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Importance and fun to read. I loved the way it was structured. Like, you just don't get bored. You don't get bored.
It's a history book that tells the story of history
Yeah.
from the greatest perspective, from people who were there.
Yeah.
You know, like what better way? I mean, imagine if every history book was written like that, like your
Oh my
firsthand experiences of literally
Well, you know
everything.
what? That's what makes the best documentaries and the best books. Like, think of Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
That is a Hollywood-ish version of a documentary. It's like the perfect hybrid between documentary and Hollywood movie. But it is the firsthand account of Easy Company. And, yeah, I mean, like, that's why it was so good. That's why it was so amazing.
Yeah.
My dad even, I remember we like bought a special, did we have these on VHS? Was it that old? Well, we bought a special something to edit out like the F words and stuff when we were younger, because my dad wanted me to watch this so bad.
Yeah.
So bad. And we would watch it on TV because they would edit it. We would watch it all the time on TV, but like we didn't have a DVR at the time. And so like we couldn't record it, and it's just, and yeah, I mean, Band of Brothers is one of those series everybody should watch.
Yeah. It's a special recount of history from
Yeah.
that first person that just,
You grew to love the characters. Like, dude, everybody loves Dick Winters. Everybody loves that guy. Like he made sense. And like, I what I love hearing in all of these documentaries is like what they used to do back home.
Yeah.
And I remember in Saving Private Ryan, one of the people and I think that one is somewhat fictitious. Like that one is even more Hollywood, but like they're always prying at what the Tom Hanks character's career was back home. And then he tells them like right at the end, and he's an English teacher.
Yeah.
But like, how true is that? Like
Yeah.
on this 9/11 day, it was
Teachers.
just ordinary people. It was teachers.
Firemen.
I mean, the firemen who were there, they were special heroes because they were like, there was nothing that was going to pull them away from running up those stairs.
Yeah.
And it pained them to watch before the second tower fell. Like it killed them.
Yeah.
And it just, yeah, I don't know. So cool. So cool. But yeah, 5 out of 5 necessity, 4 out of 5 fun. Because you're going to bawl your eyes out, so it can't be 5 out of 5.
I'm going to give it 5s across the board.
Fair.
I think this is, out of every book that I've read since starting this podcast, and every book that I've read, I mean, which is basically every book I've read ever, because I have never read before this, I think this is
It's easy top 5.
The most life-changing book I've read so far.
Wow.
Like, as far as like cut me to the core, made me appreciate life, and made me have a different perspective on something that I thought I had a perspective on.
Right, because you think you know it.
Yeah, you really do. You grow up thinking like, oh, I know 9/11. Like lots of people died. If you haven't really dug into the firsthand accounts, you don't really know.
You don't.
Like you really do need to
Even my parents, who remember watching it on the news, remember how they felt in the actual moment and knew the gravity of the situation. I think I understand the impact a little bit better than them. Yeah. I don't have their situation that they had, but I understand these people.
Yeah.
And dude, these accounts.
Crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So significant.
So I would just recommend this book to everybody. Like, I know that this
across the board.
If this episode's coming out on 9/11, if you want to do something special for 9/11, like
it also is a big day of service.
Yeah.
Go do some service that day.
Go do some service. Go do something good. Get out of yourself. That should be the goal.
Yeah,
for 9/11.
Get out of yourself.
It's not about me.
And that's why it's a day of service.
Yeah. Get out of yourself. Do something for somebody else. Maybe start this book. I mean, really, I would recommend it so much. Like if you have not read this book, it's an important one. You know, definitely give it a shot. I promise you will not be disappointed. So, and also like, comment, and subscribe to the podcast.
Yeah, I guess comment.
Yeah, comment.
You were talking about how to get more comments.
Yeah, the problem is I don't
comment what you did for service that day.
Yeah, there
you go.
Or what you want to do.
Yeah, comment a good service idea.
Yeah, something that we can do to help other people.
Yeah,
because we need to boost up some of the comments and the likes here on YouTube, or if you're on
so that
Spotify.
This podcast doesn't die in my basement.
Whatever. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. That would be great. Cool. And hopefully we're getting a few more listeners every episode.
I have noticed that. I've only been looking on YouTube, but
yeah, I mean,
I guess I can't see views on Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts and Spotify, we're going up a little bit every month. We're now, or every podcast episode. We get multiples every day.
Where has the best discoverability for
YouTube
a platform? Okay, I figured it would be YouTube. YouTube just, I don't know why or how, but like,
I mean, I've had over like, this is not a lot. I mean, granted, I haven't really marketed this a whole lot, so I'm going to start posting on my own personal Facebook here pretty soon.
Nice.
But with no marketing, I mean, we've had about 600-ish views on the podcast on YouTube alone. And then on podcast platforms, it's been about somewhere between 100.
And these are long.
100 and 150.
Holy cow, this one is really long.
Yeah. And that's not viewed completely. Like that's just anything longer than 60 seconds, I think, is the threshold.
Oh, longer than 60 seconds?
Yeah, so it's not a lot. It has like average views. So most of the episodes' average view time are like 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
But that's over the span of like hundreds of viewers.
I wonder how you compare, like, what is the measurement of success on something like that? Like, I guess like Joe Rogan has 3-hour podcasts. Is his average view time 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't think anybody knows. I don't think you can know.
Yeah,
doesn't.
without them sharing
Yeah,
that
he would
information.
have to share.
But I think it's going pretty good. I think
It's fun.
it is fun. And
It's
that's
fun
the
to
thing.
participate. I am excited for you to open up the book list. Plan it out.
Yeah. And I want
Even if you don't have guests.
to bring on people that I don't know. Like it is fun talking to you.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
fun talking to Olivia. It's
No,
fun talking to
yeah,
Adam.
No, and I want to hear people.
But I want to bring on some people that I don't know. So if you are somebody that I don't know, or somebody that I don't know super well, maybe, even if you just know me like peripherally,
Yeah, if you're an acquaintance.
yeah, please reach out. Like I'm trying to look for people to have on the podcast. You know, would love to read a book with you. I've got a list of, I think like 80 books that are on my list of to read books.
Put that in the comments.
It's been super fun.
If you live in Idaho or Utah,
Yeah. Come
hit
on
them
out.
up in the comments.
Yeah. Or if you
Be
know,
on an
if you know
episode.
somebody who lives in Idaho or Utah who you think would like reading a book, let me know, because
Yeah.
just looking for, different perspectives on this. I will say I have enjoyed this no matter what happens, because I've read books and I feel like I've grown as a person, and I will do this at least for a year, because Olivia said she didn't think that I could read a book a week for a year, and this is going to keep me accountable.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's actually awesome.
And then after that, we'll reassess.
She's crazy. She reads like 2 books a week.
Dude, last year she read like 130 something books. It was like almost 3 books a week. She's nuts. She reads so much. And like not just fluff books. She reads all sorts of stuff. She's awesome.
I don't know how you remember that. You forget them. She doesn't know which book she's read.
I don't know.
I couldn't do that. It's very cool, though.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.